Yo, it's the Block Mama coming to y'all like I know how, man. Listen up. Today I'm gonna talk about Brett Favre since his streak has ended, and basically, listen. Let's talk about Brett Favre's career. The fact of the matter is, this guy he's one of the all-time greats. Definitely, but he also has a lot of failure on his part because when ESPN first take this morning, they were talking about him and about whether his legacy is tarnished any or enhanced, or where does it stand in your own eyes. So in my own eyes, he's definitely an all-time great. I just think for him, he gets more. He's looked as greater in some people's eyes because of let's say his personality. Because you think about it, the guy has the most interceptions of all time. On the other hand, he has the most yards. He only has one Super Bowl, which is, you look at his pawn, but he lost the Super Bowl. So I was thinking like, man, Brett, he only has one Super Bowl. He's got these great numbers. The streak was even phenomenal. Like, to play that many games straight is unheard of. So I think his legacy is a great one. But let's not make it more than what it actually, should be. To me, he's not up there with some of the great legacies of a Joe Montana or a John Elway. But I'll talk about that later. But Brett Favre's legacy is a great one, and if I was to rate it on a 1 to 10 scale, I'll say 10 was Joe Montana. I think Brett Favre legacy wise should be about at least about an 8. Yeah, 8 is about right. So now, while I was watching First Take this morning, Skip Bayless said about Brett Favre's legacy that he looks at it totally on the field. He says, what this guy did, he said most quarterbacks don't play over the age of 38, and Brett Favre played till he was 40, even he's 41 now this season. And he said what he did when he was 38 with the Packers losing the NFC Championship game to the Giants, and then what he did with 40 losing to the Saints in the NFC Championship game with the Vikings. He said no other quarterback has ever done that. He's been to the Pro Bowl when he was 40. So, he said, his point of view on Brett's legacy was, he just looks at the on the field actions and stuff. And I said, wow, like it's funny how Skip Bayless can just look at his on the field actions with Brett Favre, but when it comes to Terrell Owens, all he does is look at his off the field actions. And I'm just be honest about this thing. I wonder if race plays any play in that, because Terrell Owens has tremendous stats. Is Brett Favre going to the Hall of Fame? Sure he's going to the Hall of Fame. Is Terrell Owens going to the Hall of Fame? Sure, he's going to the Hall of Fame. But if you were to ask Skip Bayless about Terrell Owens going to the Hall of Fame, he doesn't know. He don't think he should go in. Why? He has tremendous stats. Well, he says because he's been with a lot of teams. Brett Favre's been with a lot of teams. The Packers, the Jets, the Vikings. Yes, Terrell Owens has been with way more teams than that, but if Brett was to retire, you would say, oh, he would go in as a Packer. Well, of course. If Terrell Owens was to retire, what team would he go in as? That's a good question. Maybe he should go in as a Niner. Maybe he can go in as a Cowboy. Maybe he can go in as an Eagle. I don't know. He had three. Those were 3 good teams. He had 3 good stops at. So I just want to know, what you guys think about that? Like how Skip Bayless was so adamant about just looking at the on-field, just looking at his on-field production. But when it comes to other players like Terrell Owens, who we all know he has a thing against them, he looks at his off-field, problems, or how he's a team obliterator, stuff like that. He very rarely mentions how Terrell Owens performs on the field. So back to Brett Favre, and what I did was, I looked at Brett Favre to where he would rank to me amongst the all-time quarterbacks, and I'm a believer that obviously he's not a top 5 quarterback ever. I mean, some of you guys may disagree with that, but I truly honestly believe Brett Favre is not a top 5 quarterback, and honestly, I'm not putting him over. I have, these are in no specific order. I have John Elway over him, Dan Marino, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, Johnny Unitas. Those guys, and I'm not saying these are the top 5 ever either. I started naming guys that I would pick over Peyton Manning. Then I said, well, wait a minute, I'm forgetting one of the quarterbacks that I love, and that's Tom Brady. I'm not putting him over Tom Brady either. So then I said, wow, is Brett even making the top 10? And no, in my eyes, remember I have Tom Brady, I got Terry Bradshaw, I got Troy Aikman, I have Steve Young. That's 10 right there. And I was like, wow, Brett Favre is not even in the top 10 of all time, in my eyes. Then I was thinking, maybe can he be in the top 15? And I said, sure, he would be, because he's a top 15 quarterback to ever play. So I didn't even do 15, but I did 5, and then I did 10. Now I was trying to see where would Brett be ranked at that time, and he's not a top 10 quarterback of all time. Let me know what you guys think about that. I had to sit down and actually these quarterbacks over him, and I'm sure there's more that can be interchanged with him. And I'm a Cowboys fan. I just can't mess with the Cowboys, of course. Roger Staubach, is Brett Favre better than him? I don't think so, but that's my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. Follow me on Twitter @BlockMamba. Rate and leave a comment on this video. It was all about Brett Favre today. And if you don't believe me, watch ESPN First Take. It comes on at 12 o'clock. And it also comes on at 2 or 2:30 again. And watch what Skip Bayless says about Brett Favre, how he strictly talks about his on-the-field production. And then, contrast that with how he talks about Terrell Owens. Look it up on YouTube or something. He always talks about Terrell Owens off the field problems or whatever. Follow me on Twitter, and always remember the GGT. Give God thanks.